Have you ever pondered about the significance of Exodus chapter 20 in the Bible? This chapter holds a special place, famously known for the Ten Commandments, a moral compass for many. Let's start unraveling its depths, beginning with verse 1. This initial verse introduces us to God not just as a deity, but as the one who guided the Israelites from the shackles of Egyptian slavery to freedom. In this verse, God establishes himself as the liberator and protector of the Israelites. Now moving on to verses 2 and 3. Here we delve into the heart of the Ten Commandments, beginning with the first and most fundamental commandment given to the Israelites. You shall have no other gods before me, the verse states, laying the groundwork for a monotheistic belief system. The commandment is clear and unequivocal. It calls for the Israelites to acknowledge and worship only one God, rejecting all others. This commandment, the first of the 10, is of paramount importance. It emphasizes the concept of monotheism, a belief in a single, omnipotent and transcendent God, a radical departure from the polytheistic religions prevalent in the surrounding cultures of that time. It's a powerful declaration asserting the supremacy of the one true God over all other deities and idols. It calls for absolute loyalty and devotion, setting the tone for the commandments that follow. In these verses, God asserts his position as the one and only God to be worshipped. Let's delve into verses 4 to 6. These lines lay down a powerful and significant commandment, the prohibition against the making and worshipping of idols. It's a fascinating concept, isn't it? The idea that crafting an image, a representation of a deity, and then bestowing upon it the reverence due to the divine, is seen as a grave transgression. But this commandment goes beyond merely forbidding physical idols. It also speaks to the idols of the heart, those things we might value or prioritize above our relationship with God. Now, the verses carry a warning, but also a promise. God warns that he will punish those who disobey this commandment, reflecting his divine justice. Yet, in the very next breath, he promises mercy to thousands of those who love him and keep his commands. It's a stirring reminder of his abundant grace and love. In these verses, God expresses his jealousy and his desire for his people's loyalty. Proceeding to verses 7 to 11, we find two significant commandments here. In verse 7, we encounter a clear directive against misusing God's name. This commandment isn't merely about refraining from using his name in vain or as a casual exclamation. It's about respecting God's name, recognizing its sanctity and power, and not exploiting it for frivolous or malicious purposes. Then we move to verses 8 to 11, which command us to keep the Sabbath day holy. This isn't just about resting one day a week, it's about emulating God who, after 6 days of creation, rested on the seventh. This act of rest isn't mere idleness, it's a conscious cessation of work, a time of reflection, and a commitment to spiritual rejuvenation. These verses emphasize the respect and honor due to God's name and the importance of rest in our lives. They remind us that our relationship with God should be one of reverence and that our lives should have a rhythm of work and rest. Finally, let's look at verses 12 to 17. These verses continue with the Ten Commandments, foundational principles that have shaped ethical and moral standards for centuries. Verse 12 implores us to honor our father and mother, a commandment that promotes respect and love within the family unit. Verse 13 is brief but profound, simply stating, "You shall not murder." This commandment enshrines the sanctity of life. Moving on, verse 14 prohibits adultery, emphasizing the importance of loyalty and trust in marital relationships. Verse 15, "You shall not steal," underscores the respect for personal property and fairness. Verse 16 warns against bearing false testimony against one's neighbor, a commandment that upholds truth and justice. Lastly, verse 17 cautions against coveting anything that belongs to one's neighbor, teaching us about contentment and respect for others' possessions. In sum, Exodus chapter 20 is a pivotal chapter in the Bible, presenting the Ten Commandments, which serve as a moral compass for mankind. These commandments lay out a code of behavior that promotes love, respect, and justice, and they continue to influence moral and ethical norms today. They are not just rules, but values that foster peace and harmony in society. They encourage us to treat each other with dignity and fairness, to respect the sanctity of life, and to live with honesty and integrity. Exodus chapter 20, a pivotal chapter in the Bible, presents the Ten Commandments, providing a moral compass for mankind.